Good morning, beautiful people. How are you all doing today? Hope you're all well. We are still here. It is summer holidays, but we are still here. We are still working. Um, so yeah, anything that you need, you can just ask. We will have additional learning needs, the Welsh system coming soon. Um, I have quite a good idea of the law around it, but for me, I need to know more than that. I need to know how it comes across in the system to families. I need to know how families are treated. I need to know what an additional learning needs plan looks like. So I'm still looking at working that out, speaking to families. Hopefully we'll be able to see some copies of additional learning need plans so then I can see what that format looks like, how that's presented, because it's all being well knowing what the law says, but it's another thing on how that's interpreted and incorporated within the system and how it works and how families are treated. And that's what we're here for. We're here to support families and to ensure that we're in the best possible place to do that going forward. So I am still in the process of organising to meet with families, just to have a conversation. It's not an interview or anything like that. I'm not going to ask you loads and loads of questions. I just want an idea of how you've found it working with the local authorities and schools, to look at ALN plans and stuff. I also want to see what the how the landscape is, how cooperatively services work with families, if at all, how transparent it is. I want to all of the stuff that we see that can go wrong, or that can be used against families or anything like that. I want to see if them kinds of behaviours have been at work in the Welsh system as well. So like I said, once I know and I've got a better flavour and idea of how that system's actually being done in practice, then we will definitely start offering more offering services to support families. But I don't feel like I'm in that position just yet. Like I said, I've got a good idea on the Welsh law now, but that is a small proportion of what we need to do and know in order to be in the best possible position to support you families. I need to know on the ground what it's like. It's all being well saying this is what the law should be doing, but as we know in the English system, that's not in practice on how it's working within systems, and quite often we find that policies start coming in and LAs start trying to rely on policy rather than law, etc. I need to know if all that's happening in Wales as well before I can move on into that part. But we will get there definitely. It's all a learning process for everybody, and that is the thing about everything that we do. I will never sit here and profess to be a professional in anything, because basically what we do and how we work, we learn constantly. Things change, new things come up, there's new theories on things, there's new research on things, laws change, case laws come out. So, we have to be that ever evolving people and constantly be on our toes and constantly learning and constantly being able to adapt for it. And that is going to be a big thing as well, I think, in the English system. Once it becomes clear what changes are going to be made, because I think what is clear is the system's not going to stay how it is. It is going to change. It's just what to and how that's going to look. And as systems embed as well, so what we necessarily, it's like, for example, when the law was changed from the statement system into the EHCP system in 2014, it took a long time for that law to embed, and it's as that law embeds you start seeing the loopholes, and you then start getting case law that closes that loophole gap. And then you see more changes again, and I think that's what sometimes quite a lot of the when the government look at things, when local authorities look at things, fail to see. It's not that more children are diagnosed, or more children have got SEN nowadays, or that parents are trying to fight for something they shouldn't be fighting for. It's just that as the law's embedded and loopholes have closed, it's become more apparent how many more children actually do fall under SEN. And also, although COVID's blamed for a lot of things, what it did do was show a lot of parents how much their children were struggling at school, but the children couldn't necessarily tell them. But after working with them themselves, they can see that struggle, and it's not always been easy for a school or a teacher to pick up on that struggle either, because they don't sit one-to-one with that child the whole time. And a lot of children don't necessarily have a, how can I put it, a red light screaming at the top of them, I'm struggling, do that. It's not always obvious. So I just think as well that the system fails to account for all of that. And I think it'll be the same if once they put a new system in 5-10 years time, when that system's fully embedded, when a lot of the loopholes are closed, it'll be again of like, oh my god, you know, how many children now more have SEN, or how many more children are being diagnosed. And it's not honestly about that they're being misdiagnosed or it's being overused. It's just about us as society becoming more neuro-firm and more aware of the differences. And I think rather than looking at it that children are SEN, why don't we start looking at it that we've got different brains, and we need to start adapting our society to reflect different brains. Also, we need to start adapting our society to look at the fact that we are not who were as a society 10 years ago, never mind 25 years ago. You know, we are very different. We are very technology based. We are very out of the box thinkers compared to where we were. You know, we have minds now to think. It's not that we are all being taught for the industries that we used to have. We do not need to churn out classes of 30 children that have learnt compliance and to do as they're told because they need to go and work in a factory where they're going to comply and do as they're told. That's not how life is right now. Right now we need more of the critical thinkers. We need more people that are able to walk into situations where things happen and they can critically think themselves out of that situation, or whatever, you know, think of the next steps, etc. We are not in a society anymore where it's predictable like it used to be. There's so much difference, there's so much change, there's so many different walks of life, and there's so much fluidity, flexibility, and differences within how we work as people. There's very few jobs out there that are just mundane, the same thing over and over again. Quite a lot of the jobs that are out there now rely on those people that can think outside of the box, that can come up with those unique solutions to solve problems. And that's what we need to encourage. And if we actually supported a lot of the children that we see as SEN, the neuro-spicy children, then you would see that we have an amazing generation of these children. And if we just actually supported it, embraced it, and taught them in a way that works for them, then coming out the other side, we are going to have an amazing generation of critical thinkers, of people that are able and of thinking of what we need next, how we need to change. Innovation is going to be massive. But we've got to give them a chance. And to give them a chance, it means we've got to give them the right support throughout school. We need to start treating them, teaching them in the way that they need, and stop expecting this forced compliance and this one size fits all. Anyway, sorry. And that kind of plays into my neurospicy family support, and kind of gives you an idea of the way we're coming from and where we're coming from, because it's time we embraced it fully, it's time we supported it fully, and it's time we understood if we actually embrace people for who they are, that we'd actually have an amazing, successful, thriving future. And we might actually be able to start spinning all of these issues that we have with economy and depressions and stuff like that on its head. We might actually starting to be able to create a solid foundational future for future generations, rather than constantly stripping it back to 20-30 years ago. Anyway, sorry, I'm on my soapbox. I'm going to get off it again now. Bye.